Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Unbelievable piece of news here. How can you lose track of $200 billion in frozen assets? So you already know where they are. You froze them. They're under your and you lose track. Do you think they lost track or did just What do you think? Let's see, maybe this article will reveal this. This article comes from Sputnik and it is from today, the 6th of December 2022. US and European Union reportedly lose track of $200 billion in frozen Russian funds. Wow, funds! Not even, I thought maybe, the yachts are just skirting out or something. Now it's funds. Western countries froze a huge chunk of the Russian central bank's energy reserve cushion in February in a bid to punish Moscow for its military operation in Ukraine. Officials in Washington and Brussels have since vacillated as to whether these funds can be seized outright and given to Kiev as quote-unquote reparations. The United States and its European allies, and its vassal states, that's what they are having trouble actually locating 2/3 or more of the Russian assets they frozen earlier this year. I'm quoting, because they do not know where exactly they are. Charles Lichtfield, a senior finance expert at the Atlantic Council, has indicated. Speaking to Estonian media, Lichtfield, the deputy director of the Washington-based think tank's Geoeconomic Center and expert on Russia's central banking system, said Western countries actually seized closer to $80 to $100 billion, not $300 billion, as has been widely reported. So Lichtfield explained that the freeze, quote-unquote, on Russian assets obligated foreign banks not to allow for their transfer back to Russia on penalty of losing their ability to transact in dollars and euros. However, some Asian and African banks may not have felt the need to respond to requests for information from Western authorities regarding transactions involving Russia. He said, well, it just takes time. That's basically, I think, what it is. The U.S., because they're gonna squeeze, certain Asian countries and certain African countries, they will squeeze them like that, and then they will release these things, or the companies, is not the countries actually. The U.S. Treasury triumphantly announced in June that Washington and its allies had blocked or frozen some $300 billion in Russian state assets, plus $30 billion worth of assets of sanctioned individuals, including Russian tycoons. Last week, European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen proposed creating a special structure to manage the assets and invest them. Well, isn't that stealing and then using the loot? Anyway, if you would do this to a friend or a person that gave you some money and that person did something to somebody else, and you decide you didn't like that, and you say, oh, no, what, I'm going to keep and I'm going to use the money you gave me for safekeeping because you're a bad dude and I'm a good dude. However, EU officials specified to media that Brussels couldn't simply seize the Russian assets to use them in Ukraine because the bloc adheres to the principle of state immunity. In the US, officials have expressed similar hesitation. Last month, they can trample whatever they want. They say, well, this is a special situation here, we gotta do it. We're not gonna do it again, promise. We're not gonna do it against you, unless you do something that we don't agree, and then boom, here we go again. And say, hey, it happened before, so it's a precedent right there. Last month, lawmakers proposed provision in the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act bill to allow for the transfer Russian for the transfer Russian assets to Ukraine, but the idea was met with opposition amid fears that the idea had not been, quote-unquote, fully litigated. End quote. Russian officials have slammed the asset freeze as a form of, I'm quoting, theft. The West's actions has also prompted Chinese regulators and banks to brainstorm ways to keep their own assets stashed abroad safe if the US and its allies moved against them in the way they have against Russia. And not only that, any sane person or company who or that thought that doing business with a certain kind of country or doing business with certain kind of institutions, your property is guaranteed unless you stole it. There's no evidence that Russia stole. I mean, if I dilapidate something, right, they send me and say, you're going to pay this, you're going to pay that, and you're going to go to jail. Okay, but that was determined by a court of law, not by someone who just said, you know what, I'm not going to give you the money back because I say so. I'm your bank that you do business with, but I decided because you're a bad dude, I'm not going to give you the money. And you know what, I'm going to invest it wherever I feel like. What? And then imagine other people seeing that, other businesses seeing that happening. That's a big, big precedent. And they say, well, they don't like you today, but they might not like me tomorrow. So I guess, can I have a withdrawal, please? How much? Everything. And then you see the banks. And not only. So it says Russia's frozen assets were previously estimated to constitute close to half of the country's $640 billion reserve cushion. So Russia's frozen assets were previously estimated to constitute close to half of the country's $640 billion reserve cushion, according to the central bank's year-end report for 2021. The largest portion of this foreign currency and gold, anybody say gold, was stored in China, 16.8%, followed by France, 9.9%, Japan 9.3%, the United States of America 6.4%, Britain 5.1%, Canada, oh my God, don't give it to the communist Trudeau, that's lost, Canada 2.7%, and Australia 2.5%, with more than 51% thus located in states which have slapped sanctions on Moscow. So what they're going to do about it? Well, so did they overestimate it? But they based the frozen assets amount to what Russia reported at the end of 2021. So if they reported that, it must be somewhere. The problem is they can't figure it out yet where they are, and they can't put the pressure and grab them and use them at will. Well, that's a precedent that I'm pretty sure will, if that happens, these guys froze other countries' assets before. Remember Iran, I think it was. Afghanistan is right now has about $6 or $7 billion frozen in by the US. And I think how these guys are functioning, are working, is not necessarily that you say, you know what, the money that you gave me, I'm not going to give it to you back until you do what I want you to do, if you know what I mean. But I'm going to go to other weasels and I'm going to tell them, because I have a problem with that guy, you don't, but I will make you have a problem with that because I say so. And if you don't, bang. Well, these people act as other people in the neighborhood, in a parking lot, in a schoolyard. That's what they are. We are. That's the way we are. We're just under the pretense of the law and regulations, which is fine. It's good. We try to make law-abiding citizenry, and but it's a lot of ways to bypass that. It seems like if you have influence, money, and power. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.